So I am talking to Dave Vanian from The Damned. And Dave is the band that everyone's been waiting for at Whitby. It's the 21st anniversary of Whitby. Everyone's been partying for 3 days in a row, waiting to see The Damned.
They're worn out already.
They were worn out, and they still went out.
They did,
that's
yeah.
the thing, Dave.
That's good, yeah.
They were all building up to this.
Oh, that's nice.
Also, this is a man who has held bands together for 40 years, which is no mean feat.
Well, I don't know if I've held them together. I can barely hold myself together, but we've managed to stay together. Well, when I say that, I mean, Captain and I are the only original members now.
Yeah.
And we had 10 years apart. Which was weird, because when we got back together, he said to me, "Why didn't you call me?" I said, "Well, why didn't you come back anyway?" You know, it's like, it was one of those things, well, why didn't you do it? Because he went off, and when he did his Happy Talk stuff, I was quite happy that he did it. Whereas the rest of the band hated it, I think. But, you know, good luck to him. And but we ended up, I had another band at that time, the Phantom Chords, just for a while. And we ended up doing a show together. It was so much fun. I said, why aren't we working together? And then suddenly the Damned were back together again.
Yeah.
That's the longest I think we've ever been apart.
I'm actually a soloist, and most people know me as a soloist, but I've
Right.
been in bands. Part of the reason I am a soloist is
You hate being with other people. It's difficult.
It's like having a relationship with
absolutely.
a plurality of characters.
You're with
so
a band
difficult.
longer than you're married most
Well,
times.
and this is the thing. Most of us in the world find it hard to have a relationship with one human being that we can get right for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And you've had 40 years of getting something right, you know, with periods, with a bunch of people. How do you do that?
But also, you know, the most problematic thing with musicians is the incredible egos that go with it, which aren't always in step with their talents either.
Yep.
And that's always difficult to deal with, and the little peccadillos that we all have. But if you can work around that, it works. And the lucky thing about the Damned, although we're all totally different than each other, we've all got a basic sense of humour. We come together and we like each other's company. And it shouldn't work on paper, and it never should have worked, but it always has done. And I think it's because we're quite forgiving of each other's problems, and kind of when an ego goes a little bit too awry, another member is able to kind of nip it in the bud and each other and say, okay, you're right, and that's good.
Yeah.
Because it's horrible when I see bands that have been around a long time and they don't travel together, they don't talk to each other, they go on stage, but they have no relationship otherwise. It surprises me, actually. We're at a point where we'll be in the dressing room, we're talking about something so involved that we forget that we're going on stage even. It becomes, well, come on, you've got to go on now. Well, hold on, we're just talking about,
Yeah.
And that's good. And I think it's rare, but I think that's the nucleus of a band being able to continue. As I say, ego is often misplaced in bands. As I say, it's massive.
I've always thought of it as a chemical cocktail, and of course as a soloist you don't have to deal with it, but it's like, you've got all these sort of various chemicals and you're throwing them in a jar and you're literally shaking them up.
Yeah.
You spend the night on it.
You never know what's going to happen.
You're literally being shaken while you sleep. and what's going to happen with these chemicals working together? How do you manage this?
Yeah. Sometimes it all melds together nicely.
Yeah.
You get some
and sometimes
new
you get
thing,
a
and sometimes
nuclear
it just goes
meltdown.
bang. Damn.
Disastrous.
What the hell has happened here? Yeah.
And actually every band has those nuclear meltdowns. How do you recover from them?
Well, sometimes you don't.
Yeah, well, sometimes you don't.
Sometimes bands never do.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had our ups and downs. Some members of the band they would never come back because there is a lot of friction. There is a lot of that stupidity.
Yeah.
Because that's how I view it. It's kind of stupidity, really. You got to get on with things and do what you do.
We do have a common goal. I mean, that's the thing that I guess gives you.
Yeah.
It's like your compass.
Yeah.
To making it
Yeah,
work.
I think so.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the difference, because I didn't come into music wanting to do it. So many people come into being a singer or whatever with that ego because they want to be a frontman, they want the adoration or that. I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be doing something totally different, and I kind of wandered in and lied my way into being in the band. And
you told me that story. Yeah,
and then suddenly I got successful at it, and I realised I could actually do it well.
Yeah.
And I started I learnt to do the things I wanted to do, and I realised I really like writing music and I really like doing stuff. But maybe that's why I've looked at things differently, because I didn't come into it with that.
Well,
wanting
that's the thing
to be
that
a
some people
star.
yes, and there's a certain element of desperation about that. So it's kind of inherently unstable. Whereas if you work your way up to it through the things that you've chosen to value, there's a lot more stability behind it.
I think so. Yeah. And I think the driving thing, for the Damned at least, has always been the we love the music. We love music. And that's the one thing, that's the common bond, you know. I like the fact that it's not always our music. There's been covers that we've liked, or we've talked about music, and kids have found out about other bands from the 60s and stuff, like all the garage bands, the psychedelic bands from the 60s, like the Shadows of Night, the Seeds, and all those kind of bands. They've been, often I get people come and say, oh, thanks a lot for putting us onto this stuff, because it's fantastic. It's like pointing and go and look at that, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, sharing the like of new kinds of things that question what music should be about is a new thing to go and explore.
Yeah.
That's the other thing about new music. I don't know if you have the same experience, but the current climate seems to me like that they've tried to set it up as a competition. Like, you know, who's your favourite band? Like, you've only got one. No one listens to one record. No one only likes one band. If you like a certain band, you'll search for things that are similar. And I really admire bands who, you know, realise this. Everyone has a music collection and says, if you like us, you might also like these guys, and they'll share the information. And I find it quite a generous gesture that's what you guys do. You say, you know, go and check these guys out as well.
Well, I find interest in music even now just by going on YouTube, and I'll look up something that I like, and then suddenly it will take me somewhere totally different. And I'll discover a band that haven't probably even got a record deal, doing some amazing things that I would never find any other way. I mean, that is the great thing about all the way it is now. The only problem with, I suppose, the system now is that you can put it out, but actually making a living out of it is harder.
Yeah,
it's really hard, because obviously if you put it out on, you know, through the internet, it's pretty much free, and you're not getting any money for that. So to me, you know, if somebody writes a song, it's the same as it's the same as a plumber or a mechanic who's really good at their job. Really, someone who does, you wouldn't expect them to do it for free.
Yeah, they've done a thing of value.
Yeah, it is a thing of value.
It's confusing for me, because I'm not actually anti-piracy. I like piracy because I think it facilitates discovery.
Yeah, same here.
Because you don't know whether you like a band, so you want to try it out. And I wouldn't expect people who only kind of like my music or who are indifferent to it to pay for it. But it's like, once you actually assert that you like it, I think you should back that up with giving me the £4.
Yeah.
The £4. It took me a whole year actually to write this album. Give me £4.
Yeah, you've got to be able to make a living.
Yes, like you say with the plumber, they've done something of value.
Yeah.
And once people say, I recognise this has value to me.
Yeah.
And you know, we're very lucky, because people do usually back it up and say, we do give it value, and they'll buy our records. But there is the culture of music should all be free, even if we place it at very high value. We still
I find that odd.
Right to rip it off.
I find it odd that anyone would think, why should it be free? You know, I mean, why should it be free? I mean, people, you know, I mean, and not all music, obviously, but some people, they tear their guts out to write a song, and it's like really...
Absolutely.
And then they get nothing, and I think, oh, you know, that's not good. You've got to get something.
Yeah. Actually, you have seen that the whole change as well, from that sort of top-down funding thing from, you know, major record labels.
We've seen change in the money, the technology, the
yeah.
record company, everything.
Yeah.
It's totally... I mean, because in some ways, when we first started, it was very similar to the same systems that were running in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
And I used to... It's funny, you know, we were talking about this before, but when we... bands travelling, used to bump into other bands all the time.
Yeah, of course.
And there'd be old bands... Now, we're the old band, obviously, but there'd be old bands that had been around, like I remember running into Gene Vincent's backing band and things like that from the 50s. Yeah. And you'd talk to them, and they would say how they'd been ripped off, and their manager ripped them off, the record company, and it would be the same story over and over again.
Yeah.
So that system in the 70s was pretty much exactly the same as it had been for years and years and years of people stepping in as experts, you know, moving everything around the what they call the talent, not letting them know anything about it or run anything,
keeping them in the bubble,
keeping them in the dark,
yeah.
and then taking all the profits.
Yeah.
And that's all gone. But the problem is that now there's no money, you know.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. The bubble is at on one side, the sort of protection mechanism, but on the other side, a way of using someone, really. And the grassroots thing, it's not me standing on stage disseminating, music, love me, I'm a rock star.
Yeah.
It's just, if you support me, I'm only here because you've made it possible. And it's very much a connectedness between the crowd and the band, because the band is very well aware that if you guys weren't buying the tickets to see us, we can't do what
exactly,
we do.
Yeah. I mean, we've been very fortunate that over the years, our gigs, our shows have been what's kept us alive.
Yeah.
As we go out and people still come and new people come all the time.
Yeah.
And a lot of bands haven't been able to do that, and we've done it right from the beginning. In fact, we were right at the very beginning. We were the only band that was actually pulling people in to see anything, because when we were first at Stiff, upstairs was the publicists for Mark Bolan.
Yeah.
And we got on so well, they said, well, why don't we do a tour together? And at the time, Mark could see there was a changeover from the glam rock to the punk thing, and he didn't want to get left behind, and he was worried and all this stuff. And so it was perfect sense for them to put us on the bill, because then they got new people coming to see them. What I find sad at that time was I noticed there was a lot of business people around him that were kind of keeping him away from what the real stuff was happening, what
sinister.
The news was.
Yeah.
Like he's, as you said, his little bubble.
Yeah.
And I could see they were disconnecting him because they didn't want him to suddenly make decisions that they didn't want, because everyone was really being manipulated back then. The thing is, what would happen is an artist would become so big that if then they had the finances, they could then call their own shots and it would change. But even so, there was a lot of stupidity back then of bands that would have everything and not realise it was all coming out of their own pocket anyway, and they'd be broke at the end of it, which still happens. I know these bands that go on X Factor and stuff, they get a deal and they suddenly realise a year later why they're broke, because everyone else has spent their money. So things haven't changed that much.
No, it's still based on the American dream, isn't it? It's that sort of, I'm going out there, I'm doing it, and because people are raving and saying, I love this stuff, it's all going to be okay. But the money's going elsewhere.
Yeah.
That you are a product, and you've become a product. You're from the artist's perspective, you're doing what you love. However, other people are sort of siphoning things off on the way.
Yeah, but the thing is, you always have that mix. I mean, it still is as well. You have the thing where there's pop music, and then there's kind of proper music, if you like, music where it actually comes from songwriting from the heart, whatever. So you're always going to have the two things together.
Authenticity issue.
Yeah, and sometimes the pop music's really good, even if it's crap, it's still good, But they're usually the most manipulated acts of them all. What happens now is that the good stuff doesn't always get a chance.
No. Well, this is where I insert my anti-capitalist rant. It's the people that control the dissemination of information and music and things. They will allow some things to get through and some things not
always
to
been
get
the case,
through.
though.
Yeah, it has always
right
been the
from
case. But this is the thing with the internet. The internet allows people to say, no, actually, you haven't given us access to this band. I'm going to tell my friend that I like this band. So on a grassroots level, the word spreads about this band.
Yeah.
So it's no longer exclusively top-down. You've got the bottom-up thing happening at the same time as the top-down. It's an interesting mix, actually.
It is. It's an interesting time. I think what happened, there was an explosion of technology, and it all kind of went before anyone knew how you could really do anything with it.
Yeah.
So we're now struggling to see what we can, how we can use it. Yeah. It's difficult for me because obviously I'm older.
Because you've lived through both ends of it. This is the thing. You've lived through the top-down. Record companies supporting the things they think.
Yeah, but you never know if you're making a decision because you're an old fart, basically. It's a big struggle. But it's a weird time, very weird time.
It is, yeah.
My point is that it's like, I remember years ago when they said don't sign up a major record label because that's the establishment and this, that and the other.
Yeah.
But I used to think, well, if you don't get in there, how can you change it? You've got the other side of this, though, where someone decides to do that and they've got good intentions, then they realise, oh, this is really good, I'm enjoying this, and they just go with it.
Then. Yeah, and then they go with it,
Yeah, because suddenly you've got everything you want.
And suddenly, the thing is, if you toe the line, everyone is always given plus points for confirming the values everyone already believes in. So as soon as you adhere to an archetype, you get plus points.
I don't know.
As soon as you start to sway things, people start filtering, shutting you off.
Well, this is why we're here, because we've never toed the line.
Exactly.
We've always...
Well, that's what the goth scene's
about. We've always been incredibly straight with things and honest, and that's got us in trouble so many times over the year. Even in the original punk days, we were outsiders in lots of ways because we didn't. It was supposed to be a lot freer and a lot more experimental at the beginning, and it became a sort of clique of people who, no, we don't like that, and we do this and we do that. And it wasn't supposed to have rules. It was supposed to be something very much going forward, and
Yep.
you know. So I was disappointed by things, the way they changed. You had the first wave of bands that were all incredibly different. The thing that pushed us all forward is the terrible condition of everything, the country, everything that was happening. And then it became a wave of bands that were all the same, and the things that they represented were nothing to do with what it was at the beginning. So I was very disappointed.
This is what capitalism seems to do to me now. You know, obviously I'm a fucking hardline lefty.
I can see,
and it will sense rebellion, and it will grab the rebellion, package it, and sell it back to us. Like, we've acknowledged your rebellion, and we're going to use it to make some money.
That always happens.
It always happens.
It's the same in history forever.
Yeah.
You know, what becomes this kind of argument and rebellion becomes the norm. And as you say,
they normalise rebellion to make money. It's a worrying.
Yeah.
It's a worrying.
But you have to, you got to kind of work a way around it.
But like I was saying before, you still have a voice. You still have the capacity.
I think the thing is, at the end of the day, is just to be honest to what you really. And if you stay with it that way. You know, because we always said right from the very beginning, we want money. We want to make money. We want to make money.
We've done nothing about it.
And other bands say, no, we're doing it for the kids, which is ironic because they signed major record deals. They got loads of money. They were riding. I remember the Pistols on the TV show. They came in a Rolls Royce. And we said, oh, what's this doing for the kids? Oh, God, we know all this stuff. And I really think, in lots of ways, we were the only band doing it for real. And I don't know if it was, I don't say that in a proud way. I just say it's fact,
Yeah, and sometimes you're saying because you can't do anything else.
Yeah.
It's just like, something has to drive you. It's a hard industry. What's going to drive you? The fact that you're saying what you think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's been a hard road for us, and it hasn't been easy.
Well, 40 years is not going to be easy.
Yeah, we've been through the grinder many times. I mean, it would have killed most bands, I think.
That's what's admirable about it, really.
With sheer blooded mindedness that maybe it's going to change.
Yeah.
But,
Now you have to ask me a question.
Do I?
You do. That's the structure of Tour Tales. Officially, I asked you one question.
So how did you get your very strong, hardline leftist convictions?
My hardline leftist convictions. Yeah. I think, I sometimes put it down to the simple fact of being a redhead, which is not a recognised sort of, marginalised, group that suffers. But I was bullied until about the age of 20. So from primary school to secondary and even at uni. And in New Zealand they do seem to think that ginger-headed people, it's okay to hassle them. Because we're not a racial minority, it's gender blind. If you're a redheaded guy or a redheaded girl,
right.
So there's nothing sexist, there's nothing racist. Gingers, it's fair game.
Really?
So I've always, absolutely, and so I've always just sided with the underdog, really. And I do think that people have the right to just develop their own character. I've always been prescribed the character and noticed how people treat me because of how they see redheads. I mean, it's a very minor thing. I know that I'm born privileged.
Aren't redheads
however,
now seen as a little bit more,
special?
Capitalism
has resold it to us as trendy right now. Isn't that great?
No, I think they've just discovered that redheads are really, really wonderful.
Well, okay, so we're wonderful because we've experienced, life on the fringes. We've got a bit of a taste for being marginalised,
right.
So we know what it's like. So anyone else that I see going through the same experience of being marginalised, I just want to side with them. And unfortunately, a lot of political systems are such that they have these inherent structures of marginalising people that aren't done in very open ways. So they end up disadvantaging people very quietly.
Yeah.
And so it's like we won't tell you that you didn't get this job because you're a woman, or you didn't get this job because you're black.
Well, yeah.
They've got some other official lines. So that the marginalisation goes on, but not openly and not honestly. So I tend towards wanting to fight to make these things, openly obvious and challenged, because they should be challenged. Why do we think that a character is such just because they're black, just because they've got red hair, just because they're a woman? You know, you're making judgments based on pure appearance, and I think it's unfair.
Well, that's what originally the whole punk thing was supposed to be about, is there was none of that at all.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't matter if you're a woman or a black guy or whatever. You did the job, you did the job.
Yeah, a person's a person.
Simple as that,
they, really?
You know?
Yeah. At the end of the day, we should be judging their character.
It disappeared, you know.
No, you guys got repackaged really badly. That's the thing. Punk got repackaged and resold in the blandest form ever.
Yeah, I know.
I found it horrible to watch.
So did we.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, well, you experienced it. That's even worse.
Oh, well, I better find where everyone is.
All right, no, that's good. Thank you. That was grand. Cheers.
Thank you.